This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in zero sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hi everyone, how you doing? It's Mick Tully from the World of Martial Arts television show, and I'm here with. I had to actually. You're gonna have to indulge me a little bit here, Ludi, because normally when we interview people, I don't have to make so many notes. But you are quite an accomplished individual and in really, really cool stuff. So I'm just going to give a quick intro here. The one and only Mr. Ludi Lin, who has been a Power Ranger. He's been in Monster Hunt. He was in Aquaman, Mortal Kombat. He's now in the new Kung Fu series, and he's also a genuine martial artist and actor. So welcome. It's not often that we get that. We normally get a martial artist or we get an actor. We don't get both. So welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, it's believe it or not, as I was doing some research on you, there was so many things that came up that I just thought were really cool. So if you don't mind, we're just going to start straight away by me being an absolute fanboy and saying, I actually loved that episode of Black Mirror. And I know it was the most contentious episode in that whole series, but I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was amazing. So I've got the fanboy thing out of the way. So that's it. So what we're going to do, if you don't mind, just going to ask you this oldest question in the book. How did you get into martial arts?
I think for survival purposes, I got into martial arts because I moved around a lot. I was often the outsider. So I got into a lot of just street tussles and bullying was a big part of it. So just trying to learn to survive. And then after, I just remember one of my elementary school teachers had a really great influence on me. Her name was Miss Watson. And so I got pulled into the principal's office almost every single day. And it was worse when my mum got called in. But I remember this one time after the berating by my principal, Miss Watson pulled my mum aside and told her, look, I see Ludi getting into fights every single day at lunchtime, but he always fights for what he thinks is right. And I just never heard that before from anybody, not from my mum. It seems like nobody was on my side. That just really hit me in a hard place. And then after that, I owed it to kind of a big brother figure. I haven't had many mentors in my life, but I think he would be one of them. He pulled me into the gym and showed me how to exercise properly. And from then I thought, hey, there's a way to crack this code and to do this properly. And then just that kind of set me off my journey into what, the martial portion of martial arts is, and then what the art portion of martial arts is. And for me, it's all about it's all about emotion and action and an exchange of spirit and knowledge when you do martial arts. So and to this day I'm always learning.
That is an absolutely amazing story, because you know, normally when you hear how people get into it, it's normally like I was pretty much the same, but I was getting into fights, but I was no good at fighting. That was the problem. I was just getting bullied.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
beaten
me
up
too,
all the
me
time.
too. I was no good.
No. And then what I did was I found out that I just replaced getting beaten up by amateurs by getting beaten up by people who could actually fight. And then the Irish Catholic in me was like, I'm just going to stick with this. There's that masochistic tendency that we have in the Irish community where I've got to stick with it. But whereabouts was this? Because if you don't mind me saying, I'm going to have to come out with a line from Highlander. Because if I wanted to ask you where you were from, you sound like you're from lots of different places. Yeah, obviously, it's a much better accent than Conor McLeod, Christopher Lambert. But where is it from? Because it sounds sort of Australian, but then also some English in there as well. But an educated English voice. You sound like Will, our producer. I'm convinced Will's got a butler, by the way. But we'll keep that between us. Yeah. So where? Tell me a little bit about the whole moving around thing as a child.
Yeah, I think Christopher Lambert got it right. I think we're all from a lot of places, but just one place. We're all from the earth. And then I'm brought up in a lot of different cultures. So I'm Chinese. When people ask me about my accent, I always tell them it's a Chinese accent, because it's technically true. But I moved to Hong Kong when I was little, and then I moved to Australia, and then I went to Canada. And then I went to, and then I finished my uni in the States. So for me, accents and language in general is just a tool, just like martial arts, as a way to exchange information with people and a way to have an effect on people. So it really depends on who I'm talking to. I'm fairly, yeah. It's yeah.
Well, no, you've just said something there that's just made me think, because very similar to martial arts. It's, if you're with it, like in an hour's time, I'm teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but then tomorrow I'll be teaching Kali and Jeet Kune Do. And the thing is, they're two totally different groups of people that I teach. And it's almost like being a social chameleon. You have to change, not so much change who you are, but change how you interact with people. If you've ever tried to box a grappler, you'll realize it doesn't work very well unless you're a really good boxer.
Right. So who are these people you're teaching?
Oh, there'll be I'm teaching at Gracie Barra in Erdington. Big shout out to Gracie Barra at Erdington today.
Oh, sweet.
So that'll be my students there. I teach a no-gi class. And then tomorrow I'll be teaching Jeet Kune Do and Kali in my hometown in Coventry. So I'm actually not too bad at the old martial arts, believe it or not. But
I believe it.
Yeah, well, it just as you said something when you were saying about getting into fights. If you don't mind me asking, was it because you were just the new kid? Was it the new kid in town, or was it, I hate to say this, was it a race thing? Was it a cultural thing? What was it?
Yeah, maybe I think the answer is yes, to all of the above, because I think it's I think it's a me thing first and foremost. I think I was just wherever I got it from, probably, possibly, plausibly, most likely from my mother. She's stubborn and as a mule in the best way possible. And then it is a race thing, but it's also just, not knowing how to deal with people that are different, that kind of thing, fearing the unknown, that kind of thing. And also from my part, it's not knowing how to fit in, like not knowing the rules of the game, that kind of thing. And sometimes, especially back then when I think people are more, for the lack of a better word, woke, or just more aware now. But back then, people just, especially kids, they don't know better. Your boys are the most violent primates on earth. Probably we're not sophisticated enough to understand all that. So it's all those things. And for me, I just didn't know the rules of the game. But one of the things I found most unfair back then is one of the rules were I had to have a different skin color, or I had to be born in a certain place. which was a rule that I had no control over. So it was a rule that I had to live by. And I think similar to jiu-jitsu, like we were made to move and function in certain ways, but figuring out ways to work around how we are anatomically and how we fit into each other in that way, although we seem to be opposites. So I think that was part of the journey to figure out what the rules were and where I fit in. And in that, I often, befriended some of the kids that I fought every day. Yeah. So I often say in Chinese, there's this phrase that goes 不打不成交, which means if you don't fight, you don't become real friends. So there's some wisdom in that.
Well, there is. It's without getting too cosmic about it, martial arts is very, very. It's so paradoxical because for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to try and choke you out or rip your arm out, and it's the most honest relationship you're going to have for a lot of people for that day. And then to go back and you just said a few things there about fitting in. That's going to lead me into something now, because when I was doing my research, your body of work, by the way, I was very impressed with. But the fact that you were into anime, the fact that you're into American comics, sci-fi, stuff that would be considered, the thing is now that I'm a 53-year-old man. So I took up martial arts because I was a geek. Now to be a geek is really, really cool. But, it's like, imagine trying to ask your girlfriend back in 1985 to dress like Wonder Woman. She'd be like, what are you saying, Mick? But now it's like, oh, yeah, I can dress as Power Girl too. So, was the geeky aspect of your personality, do you think that drove you into martial arts as well?
Well, I certainly got picked on for doing that. So that definitely was the point that drove me into martial arts, just to defend myself. But I think geeks are, we're into sci-fi for a reason, because in a way, a lot of geeks are futurists. So everything that's been written in sci-fi is coming true now. So we get our comeuppance,
Yeah, well, that's going to lead me, and that's going to lead me in hopefully nicely to, if you can just share some of your experiences, because like the Aquaman movie, I didn't think it was the strongest of the DC movies, myself personally, but I think that was just due to bad editing and the curse of the Snyderverse. But I'd like to know what it was like working on that, what's like being, in Mortal Kombat, what it was like being a Power Ranger, and then finally, tell me, what was it like auditioning to be Shang-Chi? Now that had to have been cool. So there's a lot to unpack there. But
I think every single experience, every role that I take on, as an actor, I try to put something of myself in these roles, and they always leave something else with me. So from the beginning, Power Rangers is always going to be a memorable project because it's my first big, large-scale studio film. And I think also that set me off on a really interesting path, in that I haven't been on a project where there's just drama, as you hear in the film industry, right? So I've been in these very harmonious, familial settings where, a lot of the cast gets along. I think Aquaman was the most technically advanced project that I've been on, because they were testing a lot of stuff, down to the very fine hairs on every single person's head. Probably like each individual hair cost, I don't know, like $10,000 to make in CG or something. It's like how everyone flexes their strengths in different ways. I think making hair is how CG people flex their strength. It's like who can make the most realistic hair, So you might hit them up for some graphic design.
I don't think with that technologically advanced yet. I'm as like. Well, I wouldn't mind getting uploaded to the cloud like an episode of Black Mirror, like San Junipero. I can handle that.
Right. That's right.
The hair thing, I'm not really that bothered about. I'm way past that. I'm way past really caring what I look like. So when you auditioned for Shang-Chi, tell me what was that like?
I thought it was going to be a very important project, and I still think it is a very important project, because it's like these things. The most rewarding thing about acting, one of the things is when you get to meet the people you affect, and for me, it's especially when you meet the little kids. And I'm kind of addicted to that, because when I was doing the Power Rangers press tour and saw the little kids dressing up, and this one kid coming up to me and going, their teacher showed them the trailer for Power Rangers at this summer camp, and this little Asian kid just didn't realize, had no idea that people that look like him could be heroes or could be leaders, but could look as good and make him feel as good. I mean, the kid can't even describe it, but they know. It's like a seed that you plant. Yeah. And I think Shang-Chi, and especially the Marvel Universe, in the vein of Disney, touches a lot of those precious little humans of the future when they're very malleable. And to plant that seed, kind of like Inception, you plant it in there, and then years later it'll unfold into something great. So it was an important project. I wanted it badly, to be very honest with you. And maybe I wanted it too much. I don't know. But I thought, I think Simu did a great job on it. And I appreciate the competition. Like, it's, I think every competition can be used in a positive way. And it's motivating to know that there's, like, it's lonely when you're the only one, and often as an Asian actor, often you're very tokenized, like you're the only one. But even knowing that there's someone out there, even if they're competing with you, even if they're vying for the same thing, it's nice to know, because I think that's part of the point, right?
Yeah, well, you just said, just as you say it, this, one of the reasons I love doing interviews like this is because when you give answers, you actually make me think. Because first of all, how awful would it be if there was only 3 Asian actors? The thing is, like, the world would be a much better place when there's 20 guys vying for the same role, because it means now, I don't want to use terms like acceptance, but if you think demographically about how many Asian people there are in the world, I thought it was such a massive, Shang-Chi especially. I loved it because it was such a big movie, not just for Marvel, who can basically print money now, but they still took a risk to have an Asian actor, because you got to remember, it was only a few years ago that David Carradine played a Chinese guy on TV. You understand what I mean? So it was such a ballsy move to get an Asian actor to not only carry the movie, but he really opened up a complete new world in the Marvel universe, which I thought was amazing. And you just said something which I don't know if you ever heard the story. It was when Nichelle Nichols? She was Michelle Nichols, the girl who played Uhuru in Star Trek. When she did the first series, she was about to pack it all in, and she was at a party, and she was saying, "I'm going to stop doing this because." I don't know if you heard the story, have you? Where she was there.
I've had a few friends on Star Trek. There's lots of lore because it's such an expansive series, but this does ring a bell. But
well, this is the original series, and she was at a party and she said, "I'm going to get out of this TV show because I'm just basically answering the phone in space. That's all I do," and that's what she said. And then this voice came behind her and said, "Please don't." And it was actually Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King said, no, because people now realize in the future that not only are we in the future, but we have an important role. But I'm only answering the phone. And he went, that's a lot better than what we're doing right now. And it was just like, wow. And again, sci-fi's always pushed boundaries.
Yes.
And being able to tell stories that maybe weren't ready to be told in some stages.
Yeah, that's fascinating what you just said, because I often think I would love to be in some fantasy genres, because I think there's just a dearth of Asian actors, even Asian people in the fantasy genres. And when you say that sci-fi represents the future, like this tells people that we are in the future, fantasy to me represents that we have a spot in people's imagination. And if we're not represented in people's imagination, we never get familiar with those people, because we're literally not in their minds. And I think this great sort of chasm between the West and the East can only be mended first by instilling our image in their minds, you know. So things like that, just to get familiar, just to know that we're different, but we're not different enough to be feared. That's really important to me.
Well, you just, again, when you said about a little kid kept coming up to you and, you know, just looking at it and going, well, I can be a hero too. And and as you were saying, you know, I could just turn around and say, look, I just played a guy in a movie. But it's just so much bigger than that. So if you can explain, how did you get into acting?
Well, I think that's a good question. I often think about it, and then the only thing that feels true to me is I feel like if I think back, right, I often like go back and think about my roots. But when I think back, and for myself and everyone that I know, basically all of my friends and everyone I talk to have been in contact with. For example, if I ask you, when you were a kid, did you put yourself in certain roles as gameplay, right? Role play.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're playing superhero or you're playing doctor, but you're acting in a certain role. So I think we're born to act because that's how we learn. We take on these roles and see if it feels right, and then that sort of activates our imagination. Like, you sort of don't know. You when you play house, you don't need to go and into your mom's bedroom and watch how she sleeps and how she acts in every single moment, but you get the gist of it. You get the archetype. And I think that's acting. You first get the mold of it, the generalization, and then you add your own nuance. So for me, it's not about when I chose acting, I just kept on going, as with a lot of people. They stopped acting and they got, you know, they got very specific in the role that they are, whether it's a martial artist or whether it's an accountant, engineer. And of course, that's a big three for a lot of different cultures around the world, as engineer, lawyer, doctor. I didn't choose that path and just kept on going with the path that I was born with.
Well, again, in doing my research, it's a classic meme of the young Asian boy, you know, father, I have ashamed you, or father, I have disappointed you. You know that, you know, where it's like he only got 99.9 in his math exam or something. You know, 99.9%. You know,
right.
Did you have that? Did you have that in your family, that you disappointed them because that you chose acting? Or
I think it's pretty constant. I didn't have a father figure, so I got a lot from my mom. She had to be like both sides of the coin.
Right.
So there's like the angel and the devil there, and that's kind of confusing for me, for a boy. But navigating that also has made me the person that I am. I think that's a big source of motivation to a lot of people. But I think the trick is to understand where it's coming from, and not be, you know, crushed by the pressure and the fear that it instills, but use it as motivation, because I think fear is quite a good motivating force.
Well, again, I know that they always say 96% of statistics are made up on the spot. Sorry, 94% of statistics are made up on the spot. No, they always say that they say that rejection, there's about a 98 to 99% rejection rate in acting. So if you're not able to handle being told, sorry, mate, you know, you're not ready for this part, or you're not the guy we're looking for, then it's not going to be good for you. How do you handle rejection? If you don't mind me asking, say like, you know, when you were up for Shang-Chi, and then you get the phone call, was it like a crushing phone call?
That was the only one that was crushing. I'll tell you, that was the only. I'll be honest, that was the only one that was crushing, because when I got the phone call, I first of all, I didn't get a chance to go in the room because I was working on another project, so mainly it was taped. And then when I got the phone call, I involuntarily and physically moaned. I went, oh, on the phone. And that was the only time that I did that, and my manager and my agents heard that vocally, audibly, and they asked me if you're okay, and I'm sure I'll be fine. But that taught me a lot too. There's a lot of value in disappointment, and there's a lot of learning in that. So, you know, that experience taught me about that specific thing.
Yeah. So, well, if we can move on to something that you actually, the role that you did get in the new Kung Fu TV series, right? I hope you don't mind that. But
Thank God.
Well, thank God, yeah, drag you out of that, right? Drag you out of that depths of despair. You know, first of all, I go to Rotten Tomatoes on everything, and the Kung Fu series has got a really, really good rating on it, and it's been well received. And the role that you play, I'd like you to explain, because as I was actually, as I was doing my research, my mind raced away, because I looked at the role that you play, and then I was thinking, I wonder if Ludi met guys like this at boarding school, because so would you like to explain the part that you play?
I could sum it up fairly simply. So I play Ko Tan on Kung Fu, and I think I can put it to as little as 6 words. Cohen hates for the sake of love.
Wow. That's profound.
So that's him.
That's it. Yeah, because it's really funny, because on Rotten Tomatoes, they were like, he's a vengeful playboy. And I'm like, But then obviously, the one thing that I have, I looked at the new Kung Fu series, and I really think that with the original, they dropped the ball, but I think it was a time thing. You know, first of all, getting Carradine in, and I'm not really a Bruce Lee fan, even though I'm a Jeet Kune Do guy. I'm a huge Danny Santo fan, as I've said several times before. I think Bruce was a trailblazer, but I know that, you know, it was the Silent Flute, which was going to be his project, and then Carradine jumped on it, and they did show a little bit of the, you know, the Eastern Western thing. But I really like the way that it's, you know, it's been written for your new series, because it's up to date. So it's very similar to like the Hawaii Five-0 show, where it's sort of name only in certain ways, but where you've managed to, you know, really flesh out characters, because it's not like that isn't a throwaway character that you play, is it, Kerwin? That isn't some guy that's just been thrown in there. That's been well thought out and well written. So what was it like when you first saw, you know, like what character you were going to play on that show?
When I first saw, I saw possibilities. I was our showrunner had contacted me a long time before the series got started. We were discussing several things that had to do with, you know, the authenticity of the Chinese myths that was going to be embedded into the series and what it represents. But at that time, there wasn't a character that was right for me. But luckily, this is the silver lining in the pandemic, because of the pandemic, I had to move back to Vancouver, where my mum was, and Kung Fu was shooting that. And also this character Cohen came up that they thought was perfect for me. So, and I read it, and all I saw was possibilities. And to say that I might get in trouble for this, I would say that the series, especially the first season, it was a learning process.
Yeah.
And it feels very different than the second season, because, you know, the shows that like broadcast shows, they have a specific expectation, and also it takes time for the studio to trust the showrunner, which writes and kind of directs the show, the cast, and everybody to be able to flex their own muscles and spread their wings. So I think in the second season, it's improved a lot, and all the characters are fleshed out a lot. But I also think that it's a really important show because it shows a whole gamut of different Asian characters. So the name is Kung Fu. It draws you in with the martial arts, and I'll never ever reject that in our culture. when people say that, are you worried about being typecasted? I will never say anything badly about martial arts, because I think that's an integral part of our culture. I'm very proud of it. But also other aspects of emotionality and drama, and how we're hurt, and how we celebrate different things, show different aspects of our character. And even a character like Kerwin exists because there's a lot of affluent people out there. They get what they want, but they still hurt. And also, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the second season, because it takes some pretty crazy twists and turns at the end. We're doing our best, and there's a lot more to tell, and there's a lot more learning to do, but we're doing our best to learn it.
Well, I'm going to be a bit of a fanboy now, just about the TV industry itself and storytelling. When because it's with the CW network, isn't it? Kung Fu, right?
That's right.
But but have you noticed that a lot of the streaming services seem to have a lot more freedom? Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV. They seem to allow the showrunner, because they're not really worried about Nielsen's ratings and stuff like that. They just go, right, okay, go. A show like The Boys would not have been made. And there's this freedom. It must be really good as an actor and a writer. It must be great to be it's a great time, because all bets are off now. It isn't a guy in a suit dictating how you're gonna make things happen. What's your take on that? And that's, I'm being really, really selfish asking that question. So when would I get the opportunity to ask a working actor, would he rather work on a streaming service or for a big network? So that's basically my question.
Right. I think it's cool. I think there's a lot of depth in that question, actually. And being a fanboy of the general industry myself, I often think about that. I think that's the prize you get from innovating. And I like that gray area, because I think at the edges, the boundary of what's old and what's new is when you innovate, and nobody can set the rules around it, because they've never seen anything like it. And I think that's why Bruce Lee was so successful and celebrated, and still to this day we study his craft, because he was an innovator. He said that the best form is no form. And what does that mean? And no one has heard that before. He said basically his philosophy was be yourself, be like water, right? And nobody knew what that means, and we're still discovering it. And when the streaming platforms came out, when Netflix came out, they weren't beholden to the traditional rules that guided the broadcast industry. And I think some of those rules made sense at the time that they came out, just like David Carradine as a monk traveling China made sense at that time. But the rules get too fixed and they're antiquated, and they need something very new to create new ground, to find new grounds, to get higher grounds. And so I think the streaming platforms did that, and everyone else is playing catch up now. Not to say there's no space or room for tradition, because you need those things to cater to different audiences. But it's an interesting time to create new things.
Well, it really is. So when you were saying about the Bruce thing, he was an innovator. I'd really like to see if he'd have lived. Imagine now, and just like, dude, you're Bruce Lee. Here's 100 million. Make whatever you want to make, and you'd be like, oh wow. Only held back by your imagination. We've talked a lot about martial arts, but specifically, what have you trained in?
So I started doing in the last year of high school. I took a trip with a couple of mates to Thailand, and that's where we met Muay Thai. We trained for about a month, fell in love with it. I didn't go back until after graduating from university. So I trained in Muay Thai gyms just around Vancouver and New York, where I traveled to finish uni. And then I picked up Muay Thai. I lived in Thailand for a year and did Muay Thai there. Cool. in the meantime, I picked up jiu-jitsu, and that was one of the best gifts that anyone has ever given me. Because first of all, I think as you get older, jiu-jitsu is the martial art to go with. You know, you can. It's one of the only things you can spar almost close to 100%. If you know what you're doing, and then from that, it's basic functionality. Like you read the books of Bruce Lee, and then you figure out how your body moves, with the injuries that you have, with the genetics that you're given. What is the best form you can do to fight, and for what purpose? So right now, if I'm doing, fighting on screen, it's often not to crush the other person. It's often to work with them, to present something that's beautiful. And that's the art part of martial arts, is you're combining your skills with someone else to express something. So I was actually just, I was having dinner with Joe Slim, Chin Han, and our director Simon last night.
Wow.
And Joe said he recently picked up badminton in order to train for martial arts on screen, because Joe is fast. He is agile, right? He's judo champion, first of all. He's so fast. So for him, in badminton, there's rhythm, there's agility, there's flexibility, there's cardio, and there's interaction with your opponent on the other side. So in that, like badminton dance, that's more akin to screen fighting than actually in the ring brutality.
Well, it's funny you said that, because it's like, Conor McGregor, when he was going to fight, it was Nate Diaz, I think, and he was doing a lot of training with Ido Portal, the movement guy, and Diaz was saying, "Oh, while I'm in the gym kicking ass, he's playing touch butt in the park." But what he was doing, he was just studying movement. And again, it's there comes a point where, a kick is a kick and a punch is a punch. I know I'm paraphrasing Bruce there, but then there's a point where it's, what's your understanding of this? It's very interesting what you said about jiu-jitsu. The thing is, with jiu-jitsu, there's so many moving parts in there. It literally is a puzzle, and you have to be smart. That's the one thing I have this theory. I've got really intelligent friends of mine who have done MMA and have become stupid. I mean, they literally have become stupid. And then I've got friends of mine who were quite stupid, who took Brazilian jiu-jitsu and have now actually become quite smart. It's freaked me out, because they're just a shift in how they think and train. So tell me, what's your daily training routine at the moment like?
So I do bag work. I do boxing every single day. I stretch every single day for about 30 minutes. I do a lot of calisthenics. That's the first thing I do in the morning. I don't get breakfast. I don't get coffee. I always have a gym at home, or my body is my gym. So I wake up and get to that right away. And I love training. It's not like, I often hear people say about me that I'm the most dedicated or persevering person that they've ever met, because of the way I eat, because of the way I train. But for me, it's just like, training is like watching TV. You're never forced to watch a show you don't really like. So I stay in the gym for hours at a time when I can, like 3-4 hours. I don't really care. It just breezes by. So I mean, that's basically it. And it's like you said, studying basic human movement. And people often get surprised by how little we know of how our body moves. If I ask just a random person on the street when the last time they even remember jumping, you kind of like, you see them trying to dig up the old memories to maybe high school days, because we just don't move very much in the correct way in the society.
Yeah, it is strange. We have become quite sedentary. Now, you mentioned diet, and in my research I found out you became a vegan in 2016.
It's been a while. I think it's about 6-7 years now.
And was that a cruelty choice, a health choice, environmental choice, all of the above?
I think it's all of the above, but I think it's more cruelty than than uh, than health. Because I've eaten all sorts of ways. I used to eat a lot of meat. I used to demolish all you can eat seafood, fish. I ate raw fish, nothing but raw fish for quite a while. And I ate, the usual chicken breast and whatever diet, and they were all good. As long as you move and you eat somewhat consciously, then I think you're fine. But I think even more than cruelty, I think it's an honest choice. That I don't like it when my actions have consequences, but I don't foresee where the origin of those actions are.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the word pork is a lie. I think the word beef is a lie, because what you're eating is pig and cow, and what you're doing is killing those animals. So I'm a strange vegan because I feel like life and death, especially death, is just a natural part of nature. I don't think we can ever stop things dying. I think in the animal kingdom, things die all the time. I just don't like to be dishonest about it. I think when a lion kills, a wildebeest on the savannah, they know they're killing this thing and they're eating it. So there's like a closure there. You know where it comes from, you know what it's doing. But I think a lot of times we don't know where food comes from. It's just this sort of vague thing, that a factory that produces the meat that comes out, and it magically turns animals into little bricks of nutrition for us. So I know that there's killing, but I just think we should be honest about it. In fact, when I'm going to restaurants with my friends, and if they order some, I'm Asian, so Asians love seafood, especially live seafood. If you get a crab, it's delicious, but it's even more delicious if you see it crawling around and they bring it out and see all the little crab legs moving, and then oh, that one's fresh. So when that happens, I always ask if I could do the knifing in the kitchen, because first of all, I want it to be killed in a humane way, and second of all, that way I know that we're taking this life and actually satiating ourselves with it.
That the honesty part is something that really got me thinking there, because when we say pork and beef, it's one step removed from actually saying, no, it's a cow or a pig. And it's the way that we rationalize it. I've got 3 sons and 2 of them are vegetarians, literally for the environment and for the cruelty. They're like, I don't want to be part of it. And I was vegetarian for 10 months. And do you know what got me back? Twinkies. That's what got me, because it's a guilty pleasure. But it was like, you can't eat Twinkies anymore, Mick. And I'm like, but they don't even look like meat. Man. And they had tallow or something in them. And I was like,
you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Twinkies will never go away. Those things will survive anything. Nuclear winter, we'll all be eating Twinkies.
Oh yeah, Twinkies and locusts. That's it. When the bomb drops, they're the only things that are going to stay.
Twinkies with locust filling.
Oh, hey, now you're
locust
talking.
Custard.
Just with a little sousson of je ne sais quoi. Yeah. It's like with a woody top note. Right. So, if you don't mind me asking you now, what have you got coming up? Is there stuff that you can talk about?
Well, there's stuff that I can talk about. I guess I'm trying to get more into the world of storytelling, like you were saying, the system, the production, how to do TV shows, to write, maybe eventually to direct. I got to shadow some directors on Kung Fu, so that was a huge learning experience for me, and it's fascinating how we turn text into images, into ideas, into people's brains. So I want to do more of that, and that's also to take hold of your own ideas and to put it out there. I think that's a very direct form also of expression. And then I think everybody knows that prepping Mortal Kombat 2. And I just have to say that I think when that movie comes out, I want to show people what you can do, what kind of body you can build, and what kind of function you can put out with a vegan diet.
But I've got two friends of mine who they're both black belts in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and they're both vegans, and they are jacked. I mean, like, you know, you see these guys and they are huge, and you're like, how do you get all that from broccoli? You know, you got to help me out here, guys. But they you know, they say we just don't need it. They really, really prove something. You mentioned Mortal Kombat. If you don't mind me just touching on that for a moment. You were in Mortal Kombat, but you were also in an episode of Black Mirror, which was very similar to a Street Fighter style game from the 80s and 90s. Now that part, now I'm going to be a real fanboy here. When you shot those fight scenes, was that CGI or was that on set?
This is about Black Mirror.
Yeah, Black Mirror. Sorry, yeah. Dueling Dragons, right? That was the episode, was it?
Striking Vipers.
Striking Vipers,
yeah. What'd you say? Killing Dragons.
Yeah. It's Dueling Dragons. I think that's the game.
That's the sequel.
Yeah, that's the sequel.
Yeah. I can definitely honestly say that most of that episode was not CGI.
Right.
Yeah. The background, none of the background was CGI. It was just shot in a way that mimicked a video game because in the story it was. We shot it in Brazil, and in Brazil there's all these beautiful, just gorgeous locations that look like places out of Japan because it's got a huge Japanese population. When I watch it, I don't think any of it, except for the very first scene where they introduce the old video game, and it's like it looks like a video game. But anytime there's an actor in it, it wasn't CGI.
Wow. Yeah, again, who did the choreography for those fight scenes?
Oh, it was a fellow UK. It was a fellow Brit.
Right.
She was from Liverpool. Oh God. I'm having a brain fart right now, but she's brilliant. And she loved Black Mirror. So she was actually choreographing for Star Wars. I think it was Rogue One at the time, and then she flew out.
Not Chloe Bruce.
Was it Chloe Bruce? Maybe it was Chloe. She was from Liverpool. She kept on going Liverpool.
Liverpool. Well, what was it like fighting? Because you had some serious fights with that actress. There was some really, and then there were some quite intense scenes. And then I'm going to be a real geek about this. Obviously, I went online afterwards because just the absolute scenes that were caused by it afterwards, because of the subtext of it was two guys. Yeah, and then they're in this virtual reality world, and then were they actually being gay when they were having this relationship, which wasn't really a relationship? And it was just like, when you read that script, your brain must have gone, what is Charlie Brooker thinking here? Yeah,
a mind blast, absolute mind blast. It was great. It was amazing. I love that script. I was so proud to be on that project. In fact, you mentioned San Junipero.
Yes,
I can never get that right. That one and another one. I think in one of the first seasons when a woman's husband dies and then she orders like a so that's kind of a trilogy because it's the same director, and he loves to explore, the confines and the restrictions and the boundaries of relationship in a future context. So that's his main thesis. It blew my mind. It was great.
You were obviously a Black Mirror fan I
love it. Yeah, drank up every single episode.
It used to make my Christmas because it came out one Christmas and then the next Christmas, and then it just, especially when Netflix threw a lot of money at it, it got really good. But the only thing that I found was it really made me overthink. Overthink stuff, but in the best way, because it's futuristic, but it's so nihilistic in certain respects. And then San Junipero was such an uplifting episode that's the one that I always go back to. Sorry if you guys who are watching this don't know what we're on about. Watch any Black Mirror, you'll enjoy it. It's amazing. It'll change your mind, change your life. Now, you mentioned directors. Is there any directors, and I am being a fan here, is there any directors that you would like to actually work with at the moment as an actor because you like their style so much?
I would like. I love all the greats. I saw Matt Reeves' Batman. I thought that was great. I thought that was amazing. In conversation last night with our director Simon, we're both big fans of Christopher Nolan's work, and Chin Han, who plays Shang Tsung in the movie, was in Dark Knight. So we're all fanboys. We're all in the industry, but we're all fanboys as well. So, but also directors that are up and coming, indie directors that are starting their first projects. I love to, because we learn at the same level, and we share more, and it's more intimate that way. So there's no project that I regret. The results aside, from each project, you always take away something new. So any director, really.
Yeah, well, again, this is why I love doing interviews like this. I've been watching a load of Scorsese recently, and it's the whole to see De Niro and Scorsese just actually move together at the same time, and you can see how they both improve, and you're just like, oh my goodness. So now we are going to wrap up, because I've tried to steer away from the hackneyed, did Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan inspire you, right? But if there was one person, alive or dead, that you would be able to act with, who would it be and why?
This is really strange. Okay, I don't want a hackneyed answer, but I think the answer is my mum. Because
that's a great answer.
Because
she's done a good job, man.
I brought her to set a couple of times, and she always points out, like, she's been directing me all my life, basically. But often I don't think she understands what it is to, like, she'll say, go be a doctor, but she won't understand the process in doing that. Only when you get there, you do understand it. So even when we're on set, she'll say, like, she does hair now. She's been a hairdresser for a large portion of her life. So when she sees hair and makeup doing my hair, she'll be like, oh no, that doesn't make you look good. Let me put my hand in that. So I think doing that, it's not nothing to do with retribution. I think it would just be a very a learning process for me, and a very experiential process for both me and her.
That's a beautiful answer. Trust me, that isn't hackneyed at all. It would be more hackneyed if you said Steven Seagal or someone. Then I'd be really upset.
Interesting one. Yeah.
No one wants to be around that guy at the moment. But thank you, Ludi. Right. It's been an absolute joy.
Me too.
I have to admit, I can't believe it when I saw Striking Vipers, and I'm interviewing the guy who was in Dueling Dragons. I don't even know where I got Dueling Dragons from. Did you? So thank you so much for your time. And it's just been an absolute pleasure. It's been really, really cool. Thank you.
It's been really great for me too. We'll chat again. And if I ever get to the UK, I'll find you and we'll roll.
Well, definitely. Well, what I was going to say, a really good friend of ours, he got our packs ready for the Batman role.
Oh, cool.
For all of the fighting. Yeah, he's a JKD guy. But who would have thought? Who would have thought that? Nolan could have been surpassed. Like the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight Returns is still the best.
Great movie. Such a great movie.
Great movie.
Best opening 6 minutes of any film.
But I believe it or not, it was the first movie I ever saw at IMAX, and I was like, so why are they making such a big thing about IMAX? And I'm like, now I get it.
Yeah.
Because it was just it was unreal. But did you see? Have you? I'm being a bit of a geek here now. Have you seen the deleted scene from the Joker with the Joker?
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, they're interesting.
Yeah, my youngest son says, Dad, you've got to check this out.
Yeah.
So I went in, looked at it, and I was like, why did they leave it out? And then I'm thinking it would have been too much. because he would have stole the show. But
they're setting something up there. There's a master plan somewhere.
Yeah, well, I actually think that the Snyderverse is going to be parked to one side for DC, and I think, well, we'll have to see. The Batman was just so good, because when you were talking about the hair, that's what amused me, because everyone's like looking at our Patsy's hair and saying, but he's a billionaire. Shouldn't he take more care in his appearance? He's like, no, he's a vengeful individual. He doesn't care what he looks like. He literally drives around in a Lamborghini listening to My Chemical Romance. Yeah. He's an emo. He's
got more on his mind.
Hey, a lot more. But thank you so much, Ludi.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah. All right. God bless, my friends. Bye-bye.
Yeah, see you, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Social Podcast Network.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.